will take us back. It's really a Wayback Machine. It looks like a synthesizer, but a Wayback Machine. How I got involved in post-production when I was in LA in the early 80s was because of this machine. This is the world's first sampler. I consider sampling to be the last great invention in recording. There have been lots of innovations since then, of course, but the idea of taking an organic, real sound and making it playable, that was revolutionary. It had been done with tape loops and things, a thing called the mellotron preceded this. That goes back into the 60s. And that played a tape loop every time you played a key. It played a tape, and then the tape snapped back and it played again. But the idea of doing it in the digital world was brand new. Digital audio was brand new when this was conceived in 1979. I have my cozy on the computer. Actually, tour jacket from the movie. But the computer itself, to realize their vision of sampled audio, this company called Fairlight in Australia, and my friend Peter Vogel, who we became very close to, invented this along with the guy Kim Ryrie. And in '79, they were toying around with this idea of building actually an additive wave synthesizer, and realizing that the computer power of the time of the day couldn't really do the fast Fourier transforms fast enough to really make it work. They redirected into the idea of, hey, can we take a real sample as a starting point of this complex waveform we want to make, and then modify that? Well, it was so spectacular. They sampled a barking dog, and it came back sounding like a dog, and they all freaked out. So this is what we're going to focus on. Well, the computer power at the time was not fast enough. So they actually had to invent the computer to do this. We had it used 8-inch floppy drives. These are 8-inch floppies. The think SSL. The SSL, similar with it, it still has its 8-inch drives over in A. One disk is the operating system, and the other is your data. And so when we talked about doing this, I had 2 of these machines in storage, and I had to pull a drive out of one. That's an 8-inch floppy drive. That's it. This is a voice card in this computer. This holds 16 kilobytes of waveform memory. 16 kilobytes. That times 1,000,000 equals 16 gigabytes. I have a 16 gigabyte thumb drive in the computer there right now. So 1,000,000 of these would equal that. So you can think about how primitive this was. So the challenge was, how do we get sampling speed and audio to work with only that little bit of memory? So we had maybe a half-second sampling time on each card, times 8. That was it. And so we had to loop things. We had to do, for anti-aliasing, they created a tracking filter as you go down the keyboard. Again, it's changing the sample rate as you change the speed of the playback. That's how it works. They had to track the filter to make it work. This was all pioneering stuff. So I had the great honor of working for this company. I was the first sales engineer in the U.S. So I was running around L.A. with this thing. Well, Disney heard I had it. And I was not in the union. And my friend Frank Serafini, who is actually the sound designer on the film, hired me under him, because he was a union engineer, to work on the movie. So we built a studio. We started working with a company called WallaWorks. They had the Disney contract. We worked under them. I worked inside of that. And at the time, the union people started looking around, seeing me there with this fancy stuff, and they're going, "Are you in the union?" I went, "No, sir, I am not." "Well, you can't be here." And I said, "Okay, but you guys called me." So they said, "Well, you have to join the union." I said, "How much is that?" It was $3,000 to join the union in 1982. I think it's still the same. But I said, "What's that do for me?" They said, "It means you can work on union movies." And I said, "Well, no, thank you." And they said, "Well, then you can't have your name in the credits." Well, there's 1,000,000 Oriental names in the credits of all the people doing the rotoscope work on this movie. I didn't care. But I'm glad I didn't join union, because it gave me an opportunity to work on a bunch of non-union movies after that, which I couldn't have done if I was in the union. So it all worked out great. So the Tron itself was conceived in 1975, I think. Steve Lisberger had seen Pong and thought this whole computer thing. And everybody's in the misconception that it was all computer generated. It's really rotoscope, backlit cell animation is what it is, with live action included in it. So it was kind of a hybrid. They didn't have motion capture or anything like that then. So some people who are not initiated in the history of this look at it and it's a cartoon, and it's not that interesting. But you look at where it came, where it started, what it was, and to where we are today, it's really quite spectacular. It really was pretty revolutionary. So if you want to see a couple things on the machine before you see the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, we have something here. This is really cool. It's just a piccolo with a loop. But that's kind of boring. So we can do things with it. Light pin. No mouse at the time. This actually detects where we're on the screen just the way a mouse does. So I go in there and we can see once again what's on that disk. We're gonna go back here. I can do it from the keyboard. Yeah, I'll keep it too. We go to keyboard control here, and it says I have this assigned to all 8 voices. And let's see quicker over here. Let's see if we can get through this. If we look at this display, we're talking early stuff. We can actually see the waveform of this sample through time, and we say, well, that's boring. Let's do something else. Let's actually go in and draw something. The first machine we sold was to Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder's blind. Right? So we put his hands on the screen like this, and he started drawing waveform. And we said, okay, let's go, let's make that. And if we go back to that display page, we can actually see the last sample I just did out here. Whoop, there it is at the end. So I can do things with that. I can say, let's merge those together. So I can tell, we'll start with, for the segment 24. I had to remember all the commands, guys, 2 days ago. I haven't touched it in 10 years. I had to actually make it work. But anyway, so now what it's doing, it's still thinking, and it just did it. If we look at this, we can see something that looks like a merge of the two. And we now have, it's like an organ sound at the end. So I used to do things, making very complex waveforms very quickly. I had all kinds of percussions I used to do. One of my favorite things was a snare drum sample forward, and I'd flip it backwards and mix the two together. And I use that as a drum sound, a bunch of 80s stuff. Very cool. So let's go back to the 80s a little bit. I'll load one of the other things that this company did, they invented this idea of pattern sequencing. So pattern sequencing is kind of like a drum machine. So here's a little thing. So it's got a series of voices in here. Clunk, 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 clunk. Well, this is all fun, right? Guess what? Last month, they introduced the iPhone app. So at NAMM, talked to them, and there's now the iPhone app up for $10. And it actually includes, on this app, on the player, there's one that you can actually do what we're going to do now with making patterns and stuff. But the playback version for $10 actually has all 500 and plus original sounds that came with this machine.
It even emulates like the disk clicking.
Yeah.
Like every time he's going to a different command, since there's no hard drive, it has to access the information that is the instruction
so here we
set
are.
on the
Here's all
floppy
the
drive.
sounds I
That's
just loaded. And let's go back here. I'm going to load this pattern sequence in, and it's just a little rhythm track with a little sample, cheesy sample guitar parts. But really, we only have half a second of sample time, so we have to do things with loops to make them sound different. And here it is. So here's what the pattern sequencer looks like. There it is, and here we go. Welcome to the 80s. Retro. Too cool. Anyway, so that's how this thing worked, and it was the sound of the 80s. It was. I'm going to play you a couple of Fairlight sounds just that were used in Tron, just for fun. Now, Tron, we had we're talking about them creating this huge soundscape in 1982. There are places in the movie, you're going to hear, we have over 300 channels of sound going on at one time. Lots of stems to make it work, but actual elements involved. There's a place where there's 300 channels, and it was all done with 1980s synchronization technology. Lots of magnetic film. You guys know what magnetic film is? It looks like 35 millimeter film, but has magnetic oxide on it, like tape. And you can get up to 6 channels of that. And there were 25 of those units all synced together, 2 24-track analog machines, and some of this stuff live in the Delve also. So here we go. I'll play this, set this in real quick. And I'll play you a couple actual Tron sounds. And we'll just see, since everything you're hearing in the movie is composite of so many sounds, you won't recognize them individually like this, but it'll be fun to see if we can pick out these elements in the movie. This is crazy, huh? Here's one. This is, let's see, come on, load for more. There we go. Let's see if it's one. It's one of these glass kind of sounds we did. And it was played in a bunch of different places. I mean, there are some the stuff, cheesy, screeches and stuff. You're not hearing any of the EQ settings or anything, just raw sounds. Which are all pretty lo-fi until we work on them. There's stuff like that in there. Play a couple other ones just to see if we can hear any of them. You'll hear this one. This is the turret. This is one of the elements in the turret of this tank-looking thing that goes around. We created all kinds of sounds. We hit anything that would make a sound, sampled it, turned it inside out, merged it with other sounds. So these are raw sounds. But anyway, you get the idea. Hello. Paparazzi showed up. I'm here. So one other thing here is to show you. I have a little video clip here. This is very low res. It came off my iPhone, which came off of a VHS tape, which came off of but it was on CBS News one night, the entertainment report talking about, and Disney was trumping up Tron, and they did this. So.
If you have recent albums from people like Peter Gabriel, Led Zeppelin, and Stevie Wonder, or have seen the movie Tron, then a lot of the music you've been listening to has been created by a computer.
As you can see, Tron relies heavily on visual special effects. A new world created, life inside a computer. But a whole world of new sounds has been created too. The work of an LA company called WallaWorks under contract to Disney, the producers.
In the computer world, we're leaving the real world. Jeff Bridges gets zapped into the computer world. And when he leaves the real world, we want to leave with him. And we want all these sounds that are coming around in this world, in the theater that you're part of, in this 6-track discrete soundtrack. We wanted to bomb you with a brand new group of sounds.
And just how do the folks at WallaWorks create these new sounds?
Here it comes. Now, once again.
The everyday sound of clinking glass, the core of one of Tron's sound effects.
Okay, cut.
The sound is first recorded, then fed into this high-tech computer-run synthesizer. The crew then molds a new sound.
We're just taking that original glass clink, and distorting it a little bit, making it, put a little humor in it by making it boing.
Okay.
And sync it up to that, to the hit of the pellet onto the ring.
And the final step, as demonstrated by the effects team. The new sound mixes with the other sounds the audience will hear at the same time.